That's inspirational. Let's turn this on. Yay! Yay, this is perfect lighting and everything. So, hi. Can we mention your name?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, what's your name?
My name is Sean.
Nice to meet you, Sean. So, what inspired you to move to Japan to pursue a career in teaching English?
It's a long story, but I'll try to make it short. I first visited Japan in 2019, and prior to that, I actually had a major fear, and that fear was flying. So, pretty much all of my life, I didn't fly when I would travel. I was absolutely terrified of getting on a plane. At one point in my life, and this was shortly before my mother passed, my mother told me that if there's something you want to do in life or things that you want to experience, we only live one life, so you need to do the things in life that you really want to do. And that really affected me. And from that point forward, I made it a point to attempt to get over my fears so that I could travel, because I had always wanted to come to Japan. I would take little flights here and there to acclimate myself. My brother was living in Chicago, so I would make little flights there, 2-hour flights. And then one time we went to Las Vegas. That was a 4-hour flight. That was a big one. But then I said, I think I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make the 15-hour flight. And I'm finally going to make it to Japan. So when I came the first time, it was a life-changing experience, and I enjoyed it here so much. I enjoyed the people. I enjoyed the atmosphere, how clean everything is, how safe it is here, the food. I don't know if I already said the food, but I love the food. And yeah, so I loved it here so much. I ended up returning back here for 2 more trips after that one trip. And then I finally decided, I think this is the place where I want to live and work for the rest of my life. That's why I came here.
Wow, that's so inspirational. Yeah, it's good to conquer our fears. So how did you prepare for the transition to living in and working in Tokyo?
So I was already very familiar with Japanese culture. Especially when I was young, I consumed a lot of Japanese media. Of course, when I was younger, of course, anime. But then I'm also really into film. So I watched a lot of Japanese films, all the classic, Kurosawa movies, the period pieces that he made. But my favorite movie of his actually is a movie called Ikiru, which is a more modern setting. And a lot of the films I watched were in modern settings as well. So I got an idea of what day-to-day life was like in Japan. And of course studied the language, learned how to read and write hiragana and katakana. Kanji, I'm still learning. It's very difficult, but the same thing with speaking and my comprehension. I'm mostly at conversational level, even though I've been studying for about 7 years. But yeah, that's how I got prepared. And then when I came here, it didn't feel so much as a culture shock when I came here to visit, and it actually felt different when I came to Japan and then left and went back to America. I actually felt a reverse culture shock because I was so acclimated to how things were here, and in America it's completely different.
Interesting. Have you encountered any cultural surprises or challenges since moving here?
The most difficult thing as far as challenges was probably, I would say, going into the ward office and doing the Jominhyo. But that still wasn't that big of a challenge because they did have someone there who could translate with an iPad, because most of that form is very complex kanji that I could not decipher. But it still worked out. As far as any other challenges, the bank. So the bank I went with only offers a cash card. I'm used to using a debit card. So at some point in the future, I'll probably be changing to a different bank, just because I want that convenience of having a debit card and being able to use electronic pay from my phone. But I think I have to be a resident for so many months before I can move into a different bank.
I see. So how are you managing the language barrier in daily life?
It's pretty easy. I mean, you go into a convenience store and it's just the basic things they ask you, like if you want a bag, onegaishimasu. Daily life is very easy. Mostly, if I have to use anything electronic, there's always an English setting. And then menus, for the most part, like if I go into a restaurant, I can read the hiragana and katakana and some of the kanji. So even if there's a Japanese only menu, I still pretty much know what I'm ordering. But yeah, and then at work, there's no language barrier because I can only speak English.
Can you describe your typical day as an English teacher in Japan?
So come in, I usually go in a little early, usually about 30 to 40 minutes early, just so I can plot out all my lessons that are scheduled for the day and which lessons I'm going to teach. And then from that point, I usually start my classes. If I have an empty class during that time period, I'm usually either grading students, or if I'm asked to, I will also clean the branch.
What age group or proficiency level do you teach?
So it's all ages and all proficiency levels. So all the way from age 3 up to however old wants to come in and learn.
I see. What teaching methods or materials have you found most effective with your students?
I would say the actual conversation itself, and the book that we use is a guideline. But I find that most of the education comes in the part where we actually get to have our own conversations together. As we go, they'll have questions, and I think they learn the most whenever they ask those questions and I'm able to give them an answer.
Have you noticed any difference between education system in Japan and the US?
So not that I know of, because I in the United States I wasn't in the education industry. This is my first foray into education, but I would say that, and this goes for public and private schools in the United States, there's usually like a set curriculum that the teachers go by. I would say here also they have their system that they use, which is kind of like their version of a set curriculum. So in that manner, I would say that there is no difference. But also the company I work for it's a private company versus a public or government funded company.
I see. How have you been building connections with colleagues, students, and local community?
So it actually started my very first day in the city I live in. I had trouble finding my apartment, and one of my neighbors was actually kind enough to assist me in finding the correct apartment. Since then, anytime I've had any questions or help, she's always helped out. As far as my colleagues, I talk with them regularly. We usually have lunch together whenever it's our lunch breaks. We'll meet after work and maybe talk for a little bit after work. So there's always people to talk to. And as far as the community, I really haven't had too much involvement in the community. Any kind of involvement I can possibly be a part of, I would love to. Especially if there's any festivals in my community, I would love to take part.
What has been the most rewarding aspect of your experience so far?
The most rewarding for me is knowing that the students got something out of the class, that their knowledge grew because of something I taught them. And then the same goes with adults, but also children. I love seeing the children enjoying class and having fun. That's, to me, is the most rewarding.
What challenges have you faced and how have you overcome them?
So challenges would probably be the work culture. Working for a Japanese company, it is very different than what I'm used to working in America. There's a strictness that I'm not used to, but I'm the kind of person that, I do the best that I possibly can do, and any challenges or mishaps that occur along the way, I just let them roll off of my shoulders and keep moving. There's actually a quote, and it's from a movie, but it always sticks in my head. Life is not about how hard you get hit and get knocked down. It's about how many times you can get back up and keep moving.
That's inspirational. Thank you. And the final question, what advice would you give to others considering teaching English in Japan?
I would say if you're coming to not only Japan, but if you're going to a different country to teach English or any other language, come with an open mind, and also make sure that your will is strong, because things can happen down the road that can, might break a person. But as long as you can stay strong and keep moving through it and do the best you can every day, then you will be successful.
Wow, I think that advice applies to everything in life. Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
It's a good question.
If not, it's okay.
Yeah. Maybe we can do like another.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.